Hello friends and welcome to this video where I'm going to talk about how to find a good software job. So what prompted me to create this video? So I've been working in software industry for close to 7 years now and I recently joined my fourth organization. Last year March I took a sabbatical and went to Los Angeles to study screenwriting apparently, and I returned in July, and after considering all the scenarios, I decided to get back to work as a developer for now again. So I had to find a job all over again. It was a 3 weeks effort, quite a grind, I must say. I learned a lot. Now technology has changed, job market situation has changed. Uh, I had a career gap now on my resume, so it was a little bit challenging this time around. It is tough to find a good job. It may not be tough to find a job, but it is quite tough to find a good job. So I thought, why not make a video about this, sharing with you my experience of finding a good software job. So without wasting any further time, let's get started. So I'm going to divide this session into three parts. First, self preparation. Second part will be job search. And third part shall be interview process. Alright, so let's begin our discussion with self-preparation. When I say self-preparation, the first thing you have to ask yourself is the most important thing before you begin your job search. What do you really want? It could be about job position you are looking at. It could be about work environment, what kind of work environment you prefer. For example, when I talk about job position, it could be full stack developer, as I work as a full stack developer, or it could be a QA person, or it could be a UI developer, or it could be a UX person, right? Or if you are further into your career, maybe tech lead or something. So whatever job position you're looking at, you need to know that, right? First thing first. This could depend on variety of factors. Your job experience, previous job experience, expertise, right? Or your desire for change. For example, I could be working as a developer right now, but probably I want to go switch into UX, right? That could totally happen. Or I probably am working as a QA right now and I want to become a full stack developer. But you must know what job position you're looking for, right? Having covered that, the next important question is work environment. One more broad category will be product giants. So let's talk about services. Example could be, Accenture or probably Infosys. Some pros I would say is that more stability, good infrastructure, huge buildings, really all the amenities that you need. If you like working in large teams, you are most likely going to get them in service companies. Some of the cons, you might get less exposure. So you're a small part of a big team, so the exposure is much less. Hence, career growth will be slow. Less work, which follows less exposure. This might not be a con for some people. Some people might prefer less work. Probably less pay. Obviously, less exposure, less work, hence less pay, and your appraisals or increments will be less in comparison to startups or you say product giants, right? I started my career with a service company called as Accenture, known as Accenture. It's a pretty big service company. I did not like it much because I wasn't learning much. My salary was pretty, low, I would say, although it was my first job. But having said that, I still miss the good infrastructure they had, the large team structure. We used to have a lot of fun, a lot of parties. So it really, really depends on what you're looking for. What is your priority right now? If we talk about pros of working in a product startup, it would be more exposure. I happen to work in a product startup from inception phase. I basically helped bootstrap the entire team, the entire product, and it was such a huge learning curve, making the initial commit to the repository, think like that, and then eventually the product becomes this huge thing, which goes into production, and then users start using it. So you learn a lot in product startup. More pay and incentives. Your work is more visible. There's no place to hide. So if you work better, so there will be more incentives, without a doubt, right? So you don't have to play any politics or anything of that kind to show your worth. Your work will speak for itself. Then you get to work with latest technology. Most of the time they're going to use latest technologies because they are creating a product, and they might choose the best set of tools available in the market. So that's a plus. So eventually this also leads to faster career growth, I would say. If I were to talk about some of the cons in working at product startups, inconsistent work hours. Yes, this really depends on the management, but expect this to happen in a product startup. Your work life balance might get affected. There might be some infrastructure issues, like you might not have a good cafeteria, the HR might not be as good as any big service company. So all those things, you might have to fight a little bit more on those things. Overall, I would say that product startup is ideal for people with 2-3 years of work experience, or for freshers. If you work in a product startup for 2 years, I would say that's equivalent of 5 years of work experience in a big service MNC. Unfortunately, till this date, I haven't worked in any of these, but I have friends who work there, and they have only good things to say about product giants. Although many of these friends have graduated from universities like UCLA, Stanford. So once you know what job position you're looking at and what kind of work environment you would like to work in, the next step is to prepare your resume or CV. Resume is generally for experienced job seekers, whereas CV is for freshers. So when we talk about resume, it should be maximum 2 pages in length, whereas a CV could be 2 to 3 pages. Usually in a resume, emphasis should be more on work experience, right? Whereas in CV, emphasis should be on academic achievements. Common part in both of them would be your project details, right? So project details should be there. Resume, project details come under job experience category, right? So you have to list organization 1 under which I did project 1, whereas in CV it would be just academic projects. But nevertheless, whatever I'm going to talk about projects is applicable equally to your professional projects as well as academic projects. It's a common practice to summarize your work experience in a resume, right? So you have company details, your duration, right? Your position. But what people forget to put is project details. Now, in certain cases, you might not be in a position to mention the actual project name, but if you can, please mention project details. Like, let's say abc.com was my project, right? So if you can provide a URL, nothing like it. If it is confidential, you're not supposed to, it has not been released yet. So in that case, put some description like an app for taxis, like Uber or something, right? So mention that if you cannot mention the actual URL. But this is very important. Put more emphasis on your project, right? And when you write about project, I would like you to talk about technology that you used, and secondly, what exactly you did in that project, right? Don't talk about like I was just an engineer on this project and we use Ruby on Rails. Talk about what exactly you did. For example, I had written this line under one of my project duties, did code refactoring for security and performance enhancements, right? So when I wrote this line, I should expect, when I go for interviews, I should expect questions on what exactly I did for enhancing security of the project or security of the application and the performance of the application. If you are this specific in your resume, it makes the job of the interviewer much easier to ask questions specific to what you did. And you also want that to happen rather than him or her asking you generic questions on technology which you might not have used, right? So be precise. You want to drive the interview in a direction you want it to go. And for that, be precise, be impressive with your project details, right? The second part is much more important than the first part, right? Every word that you put in your resume or CV, you should know why you have written it, right? If not, for example, there might be a scenario where I worked on this shitty project in a company and I really didn't accomplish much, but now I have to find another job. So I might put this line, right? I might not have worked extensively in security and performance, but I have to put something. So I did put it, right? In that case, you will have to go back to drawing board, study your project, see how could you have improved that project in terms of security and performance, research, right? And then again write this line in your resume so that when you go for the interview you can talk about it, right? So that's one more option that you have. So it is very much expected nowadays for good developers that they're active on GitHub or they're active on Stack Overflow, or if you are someone like me who likes to share their technical knowledge through teaching, then you might be active on YouTube, right? Or any such sites. I just gave these three examples, right? So if you mention something like this, it's very, very, very plus point. It's really good, right? So I know that what I get to see as an interviewer is that this person is really interested in technology if he's applying for a technology job, right? Or he is interested in teaching if he's applying for a training job. One more thing that you can do to compensate for lack of these things is that create a live project. For example, you might create a personal website. Doesn't have to be website, it could be web app, right? You might even host it on Heroku, something which is live, so that companies which are trying to hire you have something to see apart from your job experience. The motto, the whole reason of putting this GitHub, Stack Overflow, and live projects is that they should be able to see something which was not part of your professional experience or academic experience, right? So this is very, very important. Unfortunately, what happens is that we only remember LinkedIn when we are looking for jobs. Always, always, always keep your LinkedIn profile up to date. Just keep doing it. Be active on LinkedIn. Wish people congratulations on their job promotions or birthdays or whatnot and whatnot. That is for, goes without saying, little bit of networking, right? And why it is important, I'll come to that when we go to the next part of this video, that is job search, right? Mention again projects on your LinkedIn, any artifacts such as any PPTs or videos or articles that you might have written on variety of blog sites. So maintain that, mention them on LinkedIn, right? One more I would say is get some recommendations from your colleagues. Everybody who is going to hire you is going to go on LinkedIn and look you up at some point of time during the process of interview, right? So make sure that your LinkedIn profile is up to date. Yeah, I'm not gonna give you suggestions such as have a photo with suit and boot. No, that's not important. What is important is it's up to date. All your job experiences are there. You have some recommendations. You have some artifacts. You have some projects, URLs. Specifically URLs. Yeah, and you have a network which you can bank upon while looking for jobs, right? So, golden rule is do not forget LinkedIn after you get a job, because most likely you're not going to do one job all your life. So be active on LinkedIn. So now we know what we want. We have a resume or a CV in place, right? And we have a up-to-date LinkedIn profile. Having done all this, now we are ready to move to the next step of this process, which is job search. So in the next video, we'll extensively talk about all do's and don'ts of job search.